Hello, it is Monday, the 31st of October 2022. I'm only going to look at one LaserDisc today, but seeing as how it's Halloween, I'm going to make sure it's a scary one, and I'm going to make this video hopefully a little bit more interesting by looking at some other non-LaserDisc related odds and sods. But anyway, this is Alien, the LaserDisc edition of the classic 1979 Ridley Scott science fiction horror movie. This is the 1992 special widescreen collector's edition. It's a very sturdy boxed edition. I bought it online from the Salvation Army. It didn't really cost all that much, all things considered. It's in immaculate condition, and it just looks really, really gorgeous. This box set, as you can see, it uses the classic Alien poster, the one that was designed, I believe, by Philip Gibbs. Whose wife Barbara, incidentally, she was a copywriter, and she actually came up with the famous tagline, "In space, no one can hear you scream." But anyway, we'll have a look at this. So yeah, it's fairly sturdy, right? So this was released in 1992 by Fox Video. This is actually an American edition. 1992 was actually a pretty big year for the Alien franchise. It saw the Laserdisc release of Alien, the VHS and Laserdisc release of Aliens Special Edition, and of course the theatrical release of Alien 3. Just looking at the back of this, we can sort of see the list of the special features that are included, and it's got conceptual artwork, some interview stuff, some behind the scenes material, some advertising material. So it's really the special features that we that would be retained by subsequent DVD and Blu-ray releases. But yeah, so have a look at it. This is actually a 3-disc set, so yeah, it's got this really nice, gorgeous finish. I'm sort of a bit wary of putting fingerprint smudges on it, but anyway, so we've got the 3 discs in here. Yep. And here we have this really impressive looking booklet, which again it's got the movie poster on the front, and it folds out. So take a look at this. But you cast pictures and such like, and it's got some messages from several people involved in production: screenwriter Dan O'Bannon, conceptual artist H.R. Giger, and director Ridley Scott. Of the movie itself, of Alien, I'm not going to say too much. There are plenty of videos out there that are far deeper and more eloquent than anything I could add. Suffice it to say, I think Alien is a brilliant movie. It holds up wonderfully well. It succeeds on every level that it sets out, and it's a triumph of conceptualization, of production design, of writing, casting, acting, direction, editing, special effects. The movie it just works. I mean, Jerry Goldsmith's music score got kind of butchered, which is unfortunate. But aside from that, the film, I mean, it's requisitely scary. It works on its most base, superficial level as a terrifying movie. But like a lot of great movies, it's more than that. It has subtext, it has overtext. It stands up to multiple readings, whether it be feminism, capitalism, the psychology of fear, the mechanics of a suspense narrative. The movie established a fairly fan-beloved franchise. It introduced Sigourney Weaver to the world. It was immensely influential in its aesthetics and in its depiction of hard sci-fi. The movie is just it's just a classic film, and remains a landmark in cinema history. I'm pretty opinionated when it comes to the Alien movies. I mean, I'm pretty opinionated when it comes to a lot of things, but with Alien, I mean, it's sort of difficult to say that. It's difficult for me to say that I'm a fan of the overall franchise as such, because I think with Alien, it's kind of like. I mean, I love Alien, I love Aliens, and I've come around to liking or appreciating rather Alien 3, at least via the producer's cut version. But aside from that, I mean, I think it's kind of like with the Terminator and the Predator and the Predator movies. It's like the concept lends itself to a couple of really good films each, but then when it gets into the the sequels and the spin-offs, and the endless follow-ups, and going into the mythology of it, and when it turns into a franchise, it just sort of you sort of lose something, the simplicity of it, and everything. I mean, I think it was Alien. It was good for a couple of movies, but yeah, I mean, I can't say I'm a massive fan of most of what happened, post 1992. Yeah, so I have seen Alien on the big screen several times. Of course, there are two versions of the film. There's the 1979 theatrical version and the 2003 director's cut. Yeah, as to which version I think is superior, I can't really answer that unequivocally. There are scenes in the director's cut that were added that I quite like, but it also deletes some scenes from the theatrical version that I wish hadn't been disposed of. So really, my ideal version of Alien would be a cut that doesn't exist. It would be a hybrid, a synthesis of both versions, including all the material from both cuts of the film. I don't imagine we'll ever see that, but it's who knows? I mean, in a world of endless reissues and exploitation, maybe it'll happen one day. This is an original VHS release of Alien from, the movie's from 1979. There's no date on this, but I think this must be 1979, 1980. So this was released by 20th Century Fox Video. I think that would actually date it to the early 80s, because I think in 1979 it was still magnetic video. But yeah, so it's kind of scuffy. I have no idea if the movie inside actually plays, but it's a nice collectible. This is one of my favorite items of Alien merchandise. It's the original novelization by Alan Dean Foster, he's probably my favorite movie novelization authors. He's written a lot of really, really good adaptations of films. He ghost wrote the Star Wars novel that went out under George Lucas's name. He also did The Thing, which is another really good one. So yeah, this is the novelization of Alien. It's from Futura Books from 1979. I read the book before I saw the film of Alien. There was a copy of it in my high school library. Not this copy. I didn't steal it. This is a copy that I found at a swap meet some years after that. But yeah, it's a very well written book. It's very good. Funnily enough, when I first saw the movie, I was kind of disappointed by it, because I'd read the book, and there was a lot of material in the book that wasn't included in the film. Like there was a lot more dialogue, like the characters hypothesizing and spitballing ideas as to what the alien is and how to get rid of it. And there was more characterization, and of course there was the cocoon sequence that wasn't in the film either. So I read the book many times. I saw the film, and I was a bit disappointed with it. It didn't help that the first version of the film I saw was on VHS, a sort of a mid '80s 20th Century Fox, CBS Fox rather, video, and the print wasn't too good. And it sort of took me a while. I mean, I watched the movie quite a few times over the years, and I obviously came to regard it as the masterpiece it is. And I sort of had to get used to the idea that what works on the page doesn't necessarily work on screen. Like a lot of the reams of dialogue in the book probably wouldn't have worked in the context of the film. Like a film is its own thing. And also I sort of had to get used to understanding the ambience that Ridley Scott was going for, with the sort of Altman-esque snatches of overlapping dialogue and stuff. So but the book, it's still a superior example of a movie novelization. It's a really good book. This is Alien, the illustrated screenplay from Orion Books. This was published in 2000. This is a pretty good item. It's the shooting script of the film from, I believe, December 1978, which is a composite of several drafts. As fans of the series probably know, the screenplay for Alien is officially credited to Dan O'Bannon, from a story by Dan O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett. The film was extensively rewritten by producers David Giler and Walter Hill. They retained the core concepts of O'Bannon's screenplay, but they did add a lot to it. They changed the character names. They added the character of Ash. They introduced the whole subplot of the company, and the duplicitous nature of the company. Yeah, they sort of made it. They kind of made the film a bit more, I think, a bit more accessible. They sort of, I think, O'Bannon's screenplay was a lot more indebted to like pulp science fiction, and I think Geiler and Hill, they didn't really have an affinity for that. They sort of made it a bit more. They sort of made it, I think, a bit more accessible to audiences. But anyway, there was unfortunately some rancorous stuff going on regarding the screenplay. I think Geiler and Hill tried to sort of muscle Dan O'Bannon out of screenplay credit, and then it went to the Writers Guild for arbitration, and they ruled that Dan O'Bannon gets sole screenplay credit, even though the screenplay itself is it's Geiler and Hill did a lot of work on it. So I guess in an ideal world, the Alien screenplay should be credited to Dan O'Bannon, David Geiler, and Walter Hill, but yeah, it wasn't to be. But this is a really good script. So books rather. It's the script. So it's not the script as it appears in the movie, but it's fairly close to it. And yeah, this is it's edited by Paul Salmon, and who wrote a really good book on Blade Runner. I think it was Future Noir, the making of Blade Runner, and it's got a foreword by Ridley Scott. So this is a really good item to have. This is the Book of Alien by Paul Scanlon and Michael Gross. This was actually, the first edition of this book was released as a promotional item for the film in 1979. This isn't the original edition. This is a reissue by Titan Books from 1993. There was a copy of this in my high school library that I used to look at all the time. This isn't that copy. I didn't steal it from there. This is a copy I found some years later. And yeah, this is a really good book. It's got a lot of production stills, and it's got a lot of conceptual artwork. A lot of the stuff by H.R. Giger, and it just looks absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, so this is I think there's a really good picture of this one here. When I was a kid in high school, I just thought that just looked absolutely fantastic. I loved that picture by Giger. And there's all the other artists that worked on this, like Ron Cobb and Mobius. There's a lot of their stuff as well. So this is a really good book. Yeah, I was really happy to find my own copy of this years later. And here we have Alien, the spectacular 20th century Fox film, now the most dazzling movie novel, over 1,000 full-color photos. So this was published by Futura Books in 1979 as well. So that's the same publisher that released the Alan Dean Foster novelization. This is a fantastic book. I keep saying that. This is a really good book too. Yeah, photo novels was sort of a thing for movies. I've got a couple of other ones. I've got the one for Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and I've got the one for Star Trek 2. But those ones tended to be like sort of small novel-sized paperbacks, whereas this is the dimensions are much larger here. And this is just a really fantastic book. It's just, it's got like a nice, concise summary of the film, and it's just loaded with really good, relatively high quality photographs. It just covers the whole book. I'm going in reverse here, but yeah, it's just, I mean, look at that. You can't get better than this. Yeah, the famous chest burster scene, of course. Yeah, and where is it? Yes, poor old Brett getting it. Yeah. And yeah, I can. Yep, and Dallas, of course. Yeah, this is a really good book. I came across. I just acquired a secondhand copy of this by chance. I don't think I paid very much for it at all, actually. All things considered, I imagine this probably trends for a lot bigger price than I paid for it. But lucky me, huh? This is Alien, the illustrated story by Archie Goodwin and Walter Simonson. So this is the official comic book adaptation of Alien. It was released by Heavy Metal magazine in 1979. Yeah, I've got quite a lot of comic book adaptations of movies, and a lot of them tend to not be all that good. They sort of like the big publishers like Marvel or DC. They'll sort of give it out to like not their top tier talent, and they tend to be very sort of perfunctory sorts of items, but this is an exception to that rule. I absolutely love this adaptation of Alien. So it was released by Heavy Metal, but it was written by Archie Goodwin and drawn by Walt Simonson. They both have really, really good credits. I think they were both working for Marvel Comics at the time. Walt Simonson, incidentally, he had a 5 or 6 year run writing and drawing Thor in the 1980s for Marvel Comics, and it is absolutely brilliant. It's one of the best runs of a writer artist in any comic book. But anyway, so they did this Alien comic book, which we'll look at. So just great title design there. Walt Simonson, he did an interview regarding this project, which he looks back at with fondness. He was involved in doing a comic book adaptation of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which wasn't really a very good experience. I don't think they could even license the rights to use the likenesses of the actors from the movie. But Alien was different. Alien, I think Charles Lippincott was the media liaison and from 20th Century Fox, and he was a big fan of comic books. So he sort of Fox was very helpful in the making of to sort of help Goodwin and Simonson make this. So they had access to, I don't know if they had access to a rough cut of the film, but they certainly had access to photographic material and everything, and it was a very good experience. Walt Simonson said that they were able to they had the rights to do the likenesses of the actors, but they didn't necessarily have to get their approval. So it's kind of good. So the characters, they all look pretty close to. There's a chest burster scene. They all look pretty close to the characters in the film, but they still look idiosyncratic enough that it doesn't that they look like contextually they look like characters in this story. And there's Brett, of course. I would venture to say that this is probably the best comic book adaptation of a popular movie I've ever seen. I just love this book. The artwork is great. It captures, it's a faithful rendition of the movie. So it's just I can't recommend this highly enough. One thing I learned relatively recently is that Hungary had an industry in producing unofficial comic book adaptations of like popular movies. So so there's the official Alien adaptation which we've just looked at, and there's also this unofficial Hungarian version. So this isn't actually an original copy, but the whole thing exists online. So this is this is one I printed from online. So this is really interesting. There is one from Aliens, the 1986 sequel, but it's a very compressed version of the story, and the artwork is very simple. It's kind of like what you would imagine the artwork from like a coloring in book to look like. But this version of Alien is actually really interesting. Have a look inside. So it's obviously it's black and white, but just looking at it, I'm sorry, I don't know who the artist is, but it's really it's got a very like 1970s underground comics sort of rough woodcut kind of feel. It's very, very detailed. It looks almost like Robert Crumb. Like it just looks really, really good. I mean, the dialogue is all Hungarian, but it doesn't really matter. You've seen the movie, you know what everyone's saying. So, and it's actually, I mean, I imagine that the writer and the artist, whether it's the same person or not, just had access to the movie itself, because it sticks very closely to the movie. It covers pretty much everything that happens in the movie. So just look at. I mean, I just love this artwork. So I think we've got the. There's the chest burster scene there. And what else have we got? I mean, the characters, they all look kind of, I mean, they don't really look, they're not amazingly accurate to the actors, but I mean, it doesn't really matter. It just looks really, really interesting. So here's where, I think this is where Brett gets it. So the previous version, the official version that we looked at by Goodwin and Simonson is, I think it's about 60 pages, whereas this one's 86. So this one's actually, it actually covers a lot more of the film than the official version does. There's, I think, is that Ash getting his head knocked off? There is something very, very strange at the end that comes near the end here that, It's got some let's just say it's got some very incongruous nudity with the famous scene in the movie where Ripley takes her strips down to her underwear. She strips down to a lot more than her underwear in this version. So yeah, but anyway, yeah. So this is an interesting item. Very very happy to have this. I have no idea how much an original copy of this would land, or if you could even find it anywhere. I mean, I assume there must be copies out there because it's turned up online. So for anyone who's watching, until next time, don't go wandering around on any creepy, strange planets. Okay.